It's an exciting week at Manager Method. It's our 2-year anniversary as a business and the 1-year anniversary of the Manager Method Minute. This is the email that I send every Thursday with tips. And this year I've started sending an email on Tuesdays as well with longer videos like this. But these types of anniversary milestones can be a helpful time to think back on what you've done and each week putting together content and thinking about what to say, but a time to sit back and think about common themes. And one common theme of what I've done here at Manager Method really stuck out from a recent session I had working with a coaching client. So this is the idea of time on tool. So when I was talking with this client, as I do with some others, they may have employees that have more technical skills. So a lot of what those employees are working on is something technical. So the idea of time on tool is what this client talked about, of having a specific amount of time to be able to master something. And that makes sense from a technical perspective. Like in HR or legal or healthcare profession, you have to do certain things to get credit hours from studying, from actual time in patient care to be able to retain your licensure. But so for a lot of roles, time on tool is a sense of technical. But this thought of time on tool really stuck with me from this conversation because I realized it really applies to people leadership as well. The idea of time on tool of when you're actually practicing what you're doing as a manager. And how often do a lot of us have the time and opportunity to do that? Not often. So what does that look like? If you're an individual manager, as I say, managers often come into people management from various places. Sometimes you've done a great job performing as a solo employee, meaning not managing other people. And so they're like, great, you're going to be a manager and teach everybody else how to do it. Other times people may say, oh, you have a skill set that's like a manager, and you step into it. But frequently you do step into that manager role and don't have as much formalized training on the things that you need to know. And as a manager, there are things you need to know. I talk a lot about this on this channel, other social media, but this idea of critical things where managers at times can have liability for themselves, for the organization if you make a misstep. But even from a people perspective, if your job is to get the right results in the right way, how do you do that? It really is a learned skill. It's not one that comes naturally to most people. So I love this idea of time on tool for managers or those that work with groups of managers to think about how to get people managers able to practice their people skills. And I'll talk about how I do that. So one is if you're an individual manager, sometimes you may have options. Your organization may offer you management training. That's fantastic. Oftentimes it's not happening. So you're like, okay, what do I do? Obviously, I offer this course, Manager 101, which is one where it has modules and teaches you things and has a resource guide for you to learn. Other things that you can do as a manager. One of the best ways I often say is a subscription to Harvard Business Review. I think it's about $99 a year at the time I filmed this, but you will tend to get magazines in the mail monthly or sometimes once every other month, but also email access or digital access to all of their articles today. This isn't sponsored, but that's one aspect that I found to be really helpful because HBR has a lot of research that they put together that takes not just academic research like done outside of work, but really like work-focused research, but puts it in a way that makes sense. So some of this time on tool is you taking time to be able to invest in your own management. Other ways, like watching social media channels, watching YouTube channels, looking at these things. These are some ways that people say, I don't have a budget to do this. My personal expenses are such that I certainly don't have more money to spend on that. And I get it. So watching some of these tips, there's a lot of really great creators, both on this platform and others, that can teach you ways that you can think about your time on tool that you can be learning. But then it's how do you practice? So this often works well for organizations to provide these tools for managers. So one thing that I do for organizations is sometimes organizations will say, come in and lead sessions and we'll make those really customized. Candidly, that tends to be a much higher budget. But one option that I have that's worked with a number of organizations now is to have managers go through a video-based course, Manager 101, that's broken up into modules and feels more like a conversation than just a kind of boring training. But afterwards is a toolkit I've created. And this is a toolkit that includes PowerPoint deck and talking points. And the idea is that if you've taken training, like as an individual manager or a group of managers, if you take training and sit through it, that's far better than nothing. And it's really important to learn concepts you may never have heard before. And you don't need to become a junior lawyer or junior HR, but there's things that you're going to learn from that training. But then what happens? Some research shows, I believe it's Gallup, that within 6 days of a training, you'll lose 75% of the content if you don't start applying it. And sometimes I think that number is even generous. I think you might lose it, more of it quicker. But this is the idea of applying that training. So what I have this toolkit is a PowerPoint deck. It's ideas for organizations. Their managers have ideally taken Manager 101, but then it's a toolkit where they run through different scenarios and it tracks that training. So it's topics like imposter syndrome or performance management, delegation. And the idea is to give different scenarios to present to managers and do this in cohorts. So that you're giving these scenarios to managers to think about and discuss in real life before they're seeing it with their employees. And it's important to tell managers, it's fine if you feel like you're fumbling through this, because we'd much rather go through this now and think about these different topics and discuss them rather than you feeling like you need to do that on your own. So with this toolkit, the idea is managers have taken training, but then the time on tool is that you have these cohorts. So you have sessions, and they give scenarios that are designed to generate conversation. Not just a quiz like, tell me what imposter syndrome is, but a question to say, have you felt like managers need to have a certain persona? Or have you ever worried you don't have the criteria, or worried to hire somebody else whose skill set seems so much stronger than your own? And are you afraid to hire them because everyone will find you out? So it's questions like this to generate them. And they have talking points for HR to help to facilitate these conversations. But the idea is for time on tool to spend time practicing how you deal with people management. And so this is, again, something that I offer organizations as part of Manager 101 packages. But I say to managers, individual managers could buy this toolkit as well and practice it with another. And sometimes it can feel super uncomfortable to say to another colleague, like, hey, do you want to practice a conversation? But getting past that discomfort, it's something that can make you feel far more comfortable down the road to have somebody to talk these things through. And you may say to your organization, hey, could we offer this and have groups of this? That may be easier than you setting it up on your own. But the idea of having this time to practice is really, really important, and it does not happen enough. So as I say, at Manager Method, everything I've done over the last 2 years and before that is to try to get people to have ways of working better together in a practical way, especially managers who have such an impact on their teams. But I also know that there's not that many practical tools to do it. So I've created some, but like I say, also watching social media, watching YouTube, finding someone else at work that you can talk about these things with. It's really important for managers to take away the idea that technical skills are important, but your people management skills are going to be the most important in your role as a people leader. So finding ways to train on tool and find the time on tool, that's my hope. So over the next year, I'll continue focusing on that. So next year, a year from now, I look forward to seeing some of the other tools I've developed to help managers to practice and refine their aspect. So when employees come to you with those challenging situations, you feel like you have more confidence and you're getting those right results in the right way. So we are celebrating over here, but there's always work to do. And so more and more we're focused on having the very specific tools that we can give to managers so that you can practice in ways that often are reserved for those more technical skills. So thank you for being here. I love and appreciate all the feedback and can't wait to see you all. Stick around and see you a year from now for our next anniversary.